We do all kinds of things here at Word in Your Ear.
Videocasts like this.
Podcasts like this.
Crowdcast events with famous authors.
Live quizzes.
And we can guarantee to make your next birthday one you'll never forget.
There's only one way to guarantee getting all of this, to getting it before anybody else, and that's to sign on to be a supporter on Patreon.
Full details at this address.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a view.
Welcome to another Word in Your Attic. And as you'll know, there has only ever been one person on God's earth who's been a member of the Whirlwinds, the Sabres, the Rocking Birds, High Society, the Manchester Mob, the Mindbenders, and 10cc. We're absolutely thrilled to be joined by him. There's only one, Graham Gouldman. Lovely to see you, Graham.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
How are you and where are you, in fact?
I'm in northwest London.
Yeah.
Indoors like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you've been making the most of the time to move forward with your music. Tell us about that.
I have actually. I found it a very creative time. And a lot of my, musician friends and songwriting friends have felt the same. I put a studio in my house now, which I absolutely love. It's been great. So I've been doing music on my own, recording on other people's albums, and it's just been great. Really enjoyed it. So
you and other musicians sending stuff back and forth, are you?
Yes. So someone will send me a track they want me to play bass on it or do some vocals on it, harmonies, and it's great.
And the great joy is that everybody's available, aren't they?
Everybody's available. And
there.
I've been also doing stuff I wouldn't normally do. A friend of mine does library music, and it's sort of very odd stuff. And he said, "Do you fancy sort of co-writing and recording some of this stuff with me?" And it was like, "Oh yes, please." Anything. And it's been something I wouldn't normally do, but I've really enjoyed doing.
What kind of library music?
Explain library music.
That's
really interesting world.
So it's a library music is where someone might be doing like I say, a children's TV program, and they want some scary, spooky music. And they go to a library and look up spooky music, and there is your things in a sort of instrumental track or something like that. And it's been a lot of fun. I've done actually one serious sort of music album and a couple of fun things. One of them is, as I say, like it's all about sort of Halloween, that type of stuff. It's been a lot of fun to do, and I've been doing some serious stuff as well.
Right. Oh, what a hoot! That must be brilliant.
Yeah.
Imagine watching a movie and recognising your bit of spooky music underneath. Hang on.
Yes, I wrote that.
Yeah, absolutely. Terrific.
And I've also, I put out a solo album about 9 months ago called Modesty Forbids. So I've been doing bit of promotion on that, because it one of the tracks from it called That's Love Right There got into this chart that's called United DJs Music. It's an odd, I had never heard of it. Anyway, it got to #1, so that was...
Oh, is this Mike Reed? And
yes.
Okay, yeah, it's Tony Prince, Mike Reed, I don't know. It's
and actually it was through Mike. Mike and I were brought together to write something for a project that's going to benefit the Royal College of Nurses that's been curated by Chris Difford. That's how Mike and I made contact, although I'd known him for many, many years. And so we were talking about writing something together, and I mentioned this album, and I said, check it out. And he did, and he said, we're going to play that track, and it went to #1. So that was nice. I'm not quite sure what it means, but...
Well, you can tell people it's nice. A #1. That's the main thing,
#1's a #1,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So have you had a chance to dig through any of your old records?
I have, and it's quite a lot of my stuff actually isn't here. I'm very lucky because I've got someone who does an archive for me, a guy called David Jarvis, who will drive me mad after a tour for any sort of things like programs or lanyards or any kind of stuff at all. Some of the stuff is with him, but I have got some stuff here that I've bought together that things that are important to me and mark certain aspects of my professional life.
Right. Can you remember the kind of music that was playing in your house when you were a kid? Was this Manchester? Was it Broughton, Manchester?
Yeah, North Salford, Broughton Park. Yes, I do. My first sort of musical memories are around about the age of 6 or 7, and it was all kind of dance band music. And I remember my mum had a handbag that had a serrated surface, and I used to get the clothes brushes that go because
quite skiffle, actually.
Yeah. But I loved the drums, and I thought that was going to be my calling was to be a drummer. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. I actually had some lessons, but I always loved drummers and still love drummers. And there's something about a drum kit that just makes me go all funny.
I can remember you wrote a song about your dad, didn't you? Because he was such a help to your getting you started as a songwriter.
Yeah, my dad was very important, writing lyrics, and came up with ideas both for songs that I wrote during the 60s and also like Art for Art's Sake, which is a 10cc song. That was something that he used to say to me, art for art's sake, money for God's sake. It was such a funny thing. And that's quite a cynical thing to say, and he wasn't a cynical man at all, but he liked it because it was funny, and that's
was he a frustrated musician?
No, he was a writer. He should have been a professional writer. I like to use the word amateur with him, because what he wrote, both with helping me with lyrics, and also he wrote poetry, plays. He ran an amateur dramatic society, and did really well with that, but never actually branched out. I mean, a lot of his contemporaries during the sort of 60s were writing for programs like Coronation Street, but he wasn't really interested in doing it.
He came up with the idea for No Milk Today, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
How did that happen?
Okay, he went to visit one of his friends, and his friend wasn't in, and as he turned on the doorstep to come home, he noticed the empty milk bottle with the note in it. And he came back to me and said, "Graham, I've got a great idea for a song, No Milk Today." I told him that was a terrible idea. He said, "Dad, you've got it wrong. You don't know what the empty bottle symbolizes. It means that love has left the house." Anyway, fortunately, we
you would have been how old at the time? Obviously a teenager, mid-teens?
Like 19.
Right. Amazing. That's fantastic.
It's a fantastic
really,
idea.
when I look back on it, it's funny. We've been actually just finished watching Schitt's Creek. I don't know if you...
it's really good.
Which we love. And that was I was thinking about that, because there's another father and son team who work together, and I don't know how common that is, actually.
Yeah.
No, that's true. No, it's funny. No Milk Today is kind of it's like the country and western school of songwriting, isn't it? You always get the feeling in Nashville they're always looking for little signs, road signs, advertising signs, cliches that they can just twist.
Yeah, hook into them. Yes, that's right.
Because they want to connect you with real life.
Absolutely.
Particularly suburban life,
Yeah, that's right. But it's always trucks, isn't it?
I suppose.
Bloody trucks. How many,
and dogs.
songs about trucks?
Dogs and cars.
Yeah.
No, but we're getting you off the track. So early records playing. So it was dance bands. You
okay.
Remember?
Yes. Until sort of really late 50s, I'd say that rock and roll started to show its beautiful head, and so then people like, there was a sort of Johnny Ray. Remember Johnny Ray? The crooners that came prior to Elvis Presley and Bill Haley, and that, like me and millions of other people, got really turned on by this sort of rock and roll music, and guitars in particular. And then it sort of progressed then through skiffle, which I think doesn't get the credit it deserves for making us realize that we could actually make music ourselves rather than, you can't have your own dance band, can you? But you could have your own with two or three mates. You could make a noise. And then at that point, I formed a band that's primary school and discovered the joy. God knows what it sounded like, but the joy of actually making some noise with with some mates.
So that's primary school. That's quite
early. Yeah. That was really early. So I just sort of discovered music at 7. Got my first guitar at 11 years old.
Right.
A cousin of mine bought me this cheap guitar back from a holiday in Spain. I got the guitar, and what with everything else that was going on around with the music I was listening to at the time, it was like, that's it. This was one of the major points in my in me deciding pretty early on in my life that all I wanted to do was music.
Can you remember the first record you bought?
Oh, go on.
The first record I bought, I've been looking for it. I haven't got it. It's possible that David Jarvis might have it. It was Cathy's Clown by the Everlys.
Oh, yeah, great.
I love that. And the first album I bought was that.
Oh, let's have a look. Oh, of course.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good grief. So where did you buy it? Can you remember buying it?
I think there was a place called Rare Records in Manchester that was, the owner was a guy called Barry Ansell. I remember his name. That's probably where I bought it. That was where everybody went for their record. I mean, there were quite a lot of record shops, but that was the place to go to.
Can you remember how much you paid?
I don't know, probably 7 and 6 or something.
No, 7 and 6 would have been single.
That was a single. 32 and 6. I don't know.
Well, no, it would have been 28 shillings and something. I would have thought.
28 shillings. That's more than a guinea.
Absolutely, that's more than a guinea. I think I'm made of money.
A guinea. Only England would have the concept of a guinea. It's so absurd.
I love a guinea. Didn't sort of surgeons or doctors present their
bills were always in guineas.
5 guineas.
Well, do we all remember the name of Pie's budget label was Golden Guinea?
Golden Guinea.
Golden Guinea, and they're 21 shillings for your kinks.
Well, it was a way of negotiating, wasn't it? You say, how about that? £30. Make it guineas.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. You got a deal.
Yeah, the history of the guinea, a new album by someone.
I wanted to ask you this, actually, Graham. It's a slight tangent. You say you made the decision at the age of 11, 12 or whatever. That's what you wanted to do. And here we sit all these years later, and you've done it, haven't you? You've continued doing it.
I'm lucky.
Do you ever think, my God, I'm lucky?
I think it every day. Every time I'm with the band or in the studio or anything, or I'm listening back to something, I just think how fortunate I am. I never forget how really, really lucky I am. Yeah. I think I was lucky. There was a combination of things. I mean, the Beatles, I thank them for everything, really. That they sort of kick-started my musical life off with much more intensity than it had been previous to them appearing. But I was playing, with bands, and we were doing covers and stuff. And I think really that one of the main things about the Beatles was they inspired me to start writing songs.
Right.
But you did have a lot of success very early on, because For Your Love, I've got a feeling, it was a hit in 1965, wasn't it, for the Yardbirds? So you must have been
It was a hit in
18
65,
or something. That's incredible.
And I'm going to show you something.
Oh,
yeah.
Go on.
This is an assignment on the 21st of January 1965 between Graham Gouldman and Kennedy Street Enterprises Limited. And they had a publishing company called Her Music. And that is the
contract.
Actual thing. And
oh my
in
God,
those days,
it's almost Victorian Gothic type, isn't it? Incredible.
Yeah, look at that. This assignment. I should have been paid in guineas. It's actually, it says the sum, in consideration of the payment by the publisher to the assignors of the sum of 1 shilling. Well, that wasn't what you got for, you didn't sell the song for 1 shilling, but in those days, publishers took 50% of the revenue, and the 50% came to the writer. Now it's a lot more in favour of the writer. The splits are more like 85 or something around that. But in those days, I have to say that even though the publishers took a lot more than they do today, they did a lot more. They were much more active, I think, to my mind, than they are today.
Well, they were out there trying to get it covered.
Yeah, they were getting covers. You know,
yeah,
they had more interest in getting covers and things because they would get more money.
Yeah. So you wrote "For Your Love." Did you just write that for yourself, kind of thing, and then they
just wrote it. Yeah.
Right. Then they punted it around, did they?
Yeah. What happened was, I was in
it was
a band
turned down by Columbia, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I was in a band with Kevin Godley called the Mockingbirds, and we recorded a version of it, and our record company turned it down. And then it got to the Yardbirds. The publisher that we had at the time knew that the Yardbirds had decided to look for outside material because they were basically just playing, traditional sort of rhythm and blues stuff. Yeah. And they happened upon my song, and that's how it really started for me.
Did they do that very differently from the way the Mockingbirds had done it?
There were bongos on the original, on the sort of demo or the record that we made. There was no harpsichord. There was just an acoustic guitar, but the harpsichord was a stroke of genius, I think.
Right.
So it was, the chords that I had on the original were kind of a little bit more subtle, but they did the basic chords and it worked beautifully.
Yeah.
And the record sales were absolutely incredible in those days, weren't they? I mean, you could sell possibly even 100,000 almost in a day, couldn't you? I mean,
I was just going to say, there was one day when we sold 100,000. I mean, you'd have.
On which record was that?
That was on For Your Love, I think.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. I mean, you would never. Well, there are no records now. I mean, if you got 100,000, downloads or streams. Whatever the streams, I don't know whether you'd get a cup of tea out of that. You certainly wouldn't even earn a guinea. That's sure.
I'm loving the guinea theme.
Where can you earn an honest guinea in this day?
I know.
But you kept all the old paperwork, have you?
I've got a lot of it. Well, as I say, I have had two archivists. My late mum was very, very good at collecting stuff.
Right.
And then I've sort of moved house a few times, and I've sort of boxed things up. And David Jarvis, bless him, he said, just send me everything. I'll archive it. He's given me everything in files. He's given me a lot of the stuff back. I've got it in files. He's also given me like a hard drive with everything on. Right. Absolutely brilliant. So I've got some great stuff. Do
you ever go back and look at your old contracts and think, my God, did I really sign that?
I have done, only because through David. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, some of them were a bit. I'm not sure. I couldn't possibly comment.
No, quite.
No, because we kind of imagine.
I don't worry about that sort of thing. I mean, there were lots of things that I suppose that everybody of our generation could say, we could have done this or we could have done that, but we're all wise after the fact.
Because you imagine that if you'd written, Look Through Any Window and Bus Stop and all those hits that you had, that would have been life-changing amounts of money. But I suppose in those days it really wasn't, was it? There was so many other people.
It wasn't life-changing. When I look at some of the stuff, it really wasn't at all. But it was life-changing it changed my life, and I'm still doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? It's the kind of it's like the David Crosby argument. David Crosby of the the Birds, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Staples. He's very vocal about how little he's paid out of streaming and so forth. No, I know, and that's a perfectly fair argument. He says, when I used to put a record out, I used to sell this many. And I think, well, on the other hand, David, you're in your late 70s. You're still really famous. Still people want to stream your old records. Still people want to pay to see you. Nobody predicted that when you were 20 years old, did they?
Yes, fair enough. But it is irksome that to make any money out of a new record that through streaming, you've got to have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of
hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
It's otherwise there's nothing there. But time moves on. I'm not going to complain. I'm still playing, I'm still writing, I'm still recording. That's the joy for me, is in a way, is not the financial thing, more just the joy of writing and recording and playing and performing.
And also, you always looked at it as a kind of job, didn't you? It wasn't. People get the impression that songwriters just sit there waiting for the muse to visit them. But when you were working for Mickey Most, it was an office job, wasn't it? I mean, you started at 10 in the morning. And
it's an office job in so much as when I'm writing, particularly if I'm writing with someone else, because I do a lot of co-writes, then I know I want to come up with the goods. I don't want to be sort of, the one that's just sitting there. So in that way, it is a kind of a job. But I guess if I just waited for inspiration, I might write 2 or 3 songs a year, maybe.
Yeah.
But I do get a lot of ideas while out walking. I walk a lot, right. And I find that walking has some sort of meditative quality.
It does. I totally agree.
Like if I'm working on a lyric in particular and I'm a bit stuck, I get lyrics. I've got my iPhone is full of bits of ideas and melodies as well. So I get a lot of stuff just coming in my head. And I found historically when that happens, when something comes to me without a guitar or anything, any musical instrument, that it usually means it's good.
Right.
To my mind.
Yeah. So do you go along pretending you're having phone calls and you're actually singing to yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually.
No, seriously. I think people do that. Songwriters do that.
They do. Well, Elvis Costello, I remember interviewing him, and this was the days kind of before kind of mobile phones, and he would have an idea for a lyric or a melody in a cab or something. And he would stop the cab, get out, get into a phone box, ring his message machine at home. The answer phone, right, to record it.
I've done exactly the same thing. I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
But I find that if I do think of something, if I remember it, it's good. If I have to be reminded of it, then in my mind, it's not as good. If you can remember it, it's a good sign.
Is that just you're telling yourself that? Because you must have.
I don't know. Maybe I am, but
you might be.
I've when I look, I've got loads of stuff, right. Absolutely hundreds of bits and pieces, and I think sometimes I'll go through them looking for that little gem, right. And I've found the odd thing, but not a lot.
Do you find when you're trying to solve an issue, when you're halfway through writing a song, and you need a bridge or whatever, do you find it helps to concentrate on the problem or not concentrate on the problem? I.e., does it just occur to you when you're doing something else, or does it happen when you concentrate?
It can do, yes, but most of the time, once I'm on the track of the song and it's got its own legs and it's sort of driving forward, I can almost see that junction up ahead where I'm going to go, it needs to change now, and I'm now going to go over there.
Okay.
It's a bit of a mystery, really. I can't explain what happens. I mean, oftentimes I'll write something, I go, I didn't do anything. I swear to you, it just came out. It's almost like it's already in there, and the mood was right.
I'm so envious. That must feel so
wonderful. Loads of songwriters say that. Yeah. Loads of songwriters say those, that it comes through you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Listen, it's not clever. It's a gift. And I think the clever part, I guess, is knowing a little bit, not even knowing about arrangement. It's all instinctive, when should you stop writing? How long should it be? Things like that. It's all these things, but it's all based, of course, on your own inherent gift. And then, of course, listening to all that stuff all your life, what you've listened to.
Yeah. Who are the people you listen to? Who are the people you listen to that made you think I've got to write a song as good as that?
Well, the Beatles are still the benchmark for me.
Right.
Even now. I mean, all right, but the writers that I big influences are the Beatles, Burt Bacharach and Hal David, Jimmy Webb,
Right.
Billy Joel. Those are the, that's the standard I want to sort of achieve. Although I found I'm older and I don't give a shit so much that I'm writing stuff that's kind of like this song I mentioned, That's Love Right There from the Modesty Forbids album, is kind of like a swing thing. I got the idea for that when I go on the road. My wife leaves me little chocolate bars in my bag that I shouldn't really be eating, but I do anyway. Anyway, I was with the boys and I held the chocolate bar up and I said to them, "That's love right there." So it was. And then I got this idea, and it was kind of a swing thing. I thought, how am I going to do this? Well, anyway, I recorded it with some, like, the creme de la creme of British jazz musicians. It was just the four of us, and it worked out great.
Right. Do you abandon many songs? Does it come a point in a song where you think, no, that is not going to stand up, as you said earlier?
Yes, yeah, and I know pretty early on, for me to finish something, and I think most writers will say this, it's got to have legs, it's got to drive itself forward.
So is it a sign of desperation that you go back to a song you've abandoned? Because if you've abandoned it, if it was not going to work then, will it ever work?
Why did you abandon it? I mean, you might, sometimes I've written stuff, I'm working on something now, and I wasn't sure about the end, so I wrote this very more complex, sort of sophisticated ending, and I recorded it. I thought, I don't like it. And I went back to the original demo and did the ending it came out naturally, rather than thinking too much about it.
Well, there is that theory that your first thought is always the best thought, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that.
I think there is.
How on earth did you manage to co-write those 10cc songs with so many people involved? I could never get over how democratic it all appeared to be on the outside, that everybody seemed to be involved somehow.
Well, there were a few songs that were written by, say, Kevin and Lowell and myself.
Yeah.
But generally I wrote with Eric and Kevin wrote with Lowell. What happened, which was great, was whoever wrote the song was brought to the other members, and we kind of adopted that song as our own and did the best for that song. So there was no people saying, well, it's my song, therefore I think this should happen. Yeah. Or the guitar part should be this or that. We all contributed to it.
Right. What else have you got there to show us?
Well, I've got an interesting thing here. Before I became a professional songwriter, which I was really in the beginning, I worked in a men's outfitters shop.
That's and, can you remember what it was called?
Not only can I tell you what it was called, I can show you a bag.
Oh, brilliant.
From the shop.
We love this.
And it's called Bargains Unlimited.
So that's the name of the shop. How wonderful.
That was the name of the shop.
Yeah.
And I worked there for about 2 years. The owner of the shop was a friend of my parents. That's how I got the job. I realized quite early on that being in a gents outfitters wasn't quite for me. But I used to take my guitar to the shop and write songs. And in fact, I wrote part of For Your Love in the shop. But there is a lyric on the back that I've written.
Oh, what you hand wrote on the back of the bag?
Is that the For Your Love lyric?
Unfortunately, it's not. It's called How Wrong You Can Be. It's called. There once was a girl that I dearly loved. She promised me heaven and things that I dreamed of. You see, I can spot mistakes in it right away. She said she'd be good to only me, which shows you how wrong you can be. All right. Even at that age, I was obviously heartbroken by
was any of that?
I think that's great.
Was any of that ever used? It is. That's fantastic.
Beautiful that you've got it on the bag.
Lovely.
I don't think it was ever used. No.
Did you get a discount on, waistcoats and kipper ties or whatever?
It was near Salford Docks, the place. And we used to sell a lot of donkey jackets and jeans.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say it was a sophisticated clientele by any means.
Yeah.
But I did eventually get the sack because, and quite rightly, I got the sack because I was working, I think it was the Mockingbirds, and I was having to leave work early to go to a gig somewhere and getting in late in the morning. So we parted ways.
So you say, unfortunately, it isn't For Your Love on the back of that. Now, if you were like Don McLean and other songwriters who have recently discovered the handwritten lyrics of American Pie, and
well, that would be something. I mean,
and then auction them for a huge sum of money. I'm sure you could do the same.
He keeps discovering more stuff, doesn't he? So, extraordinarily.
There is some stuff, but nothing. I mean, nothing like I'm Not in Love or the original handwritten lyrics to Bus Stop or something like that.
Yeah.
No, I haven't got those.
So in your
because
when
you don't write them.
You don't know it's going to be the memorable one, do you?
Yeah.
And it probably isn't written out. When you're making a record like I'm Not in Love, you're doing it in bits, aren't you, presumably?
Well, no, we would have written a lyric out.
Oh, really?
Definitely, yeah, because we tended to finish the song before we recorded it in a way.
Okay.
I mean, I know you can develop stuff in the studio, and we did that as well. But with I'm Not in Love, the song was pre-written. Before we recorded it. There are two versions of it, actually. One we recorded and it was horrible, and we never kept anything we didn't like, which is a kind of a shame now, because it was a kind of like a bossa nova version of it.
Because nowadays it would be on the 10cc box set anthology, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there've been a few of those. But it would have been on there, but we didn't want anybody to hear it because it wasn't very good.
And so extraordinary looking back on it that you had three different you had three number ones with three different singers, didn't you? Eric was
Eric,
Love,
Lol, and myself.
Rubber Bullets, and you were whatever it would be.
I think that's brilliant.
I know it is. It's incredible.
Great.
I think how many other bands were like that, like the band, maybe the Beatles.
Looking back, it was a blessing and a curse in a way that we treated each song. We let the song dictate how we're going to treat it. So it wasn't like, oh, well, Eric must sing it because he's the lead singer, and I must play so-and-so, or you must do this.
Yeah.
We chose whoever was best to sing the song, or play, one person's guitar style might be better suited than another's. Although there would generally, Eric would play a lot of lead. I would pretty much always play bass. But as far as singers were, who's going to sing it, that was up for grabs.
What else have you got there?
I've got some photos. This is one of the first bands I was ever in, called the Whirlwinds.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, where are you?
I'm trying to work out which you are.
Yeah, next to the drummer.
Okay.
Yeah, second from the right.
Second
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So you can see we've all got our Fender Stratocasters and precision basses. Malcolm played the vibes, and we used to play at. We were quite sophisticated. You can tell by the way we're
vibes. Well, any band with vibes would be sophisticated,
vibes,
surely.
No less.
So, what were they mostly covers you were playing?
Yeah, there've been.
What sort of things?
We used to finish with Alexander's Ragtime Band.
Wow. Amazing.
For our sins. We used to play.
What year is this?
This is like 62, 63, I think.
Surely 62.
So it's kind of pre-Beatles, really. Yeah.
Yeah, pre-Beatles. So because we were sort of quite smartly dressed guys, we used to play we did working men's clubs.
Yeah.
But we also did like dinner clubs and things like that, and parties and dances, So it was, that was it was a lot of fun. But eventually I got fed up doing doing all that stuff. And we used to rehearse at a place in North Manchester called the JLB, which stood for the Jewish Lads Brigade. So there was a big social scene there. And they very kindly let a few different bands rehearse there. And one of the bands was, Kevin and Lol.
Right.
So there were 3 of 10cc with different bands at this one place. And I always used to go and listen to Kevin. I thought, God, I love his playing. And anyway, I asked him to join the Mockingbirds, and I left with 2 of the boys from the Whirlwinds and formed the Mockingbirds. I'm just going to see if I've got a...
That's wonderful. That picture of the group. I was watching the other night. Talking Pictures TV was showing the Sunday night at the London Palladium from 1960, where you had Adam Faith and the John Barry 7.
Yeah.
And your lineup kind of reminded me a little bit of John Barry 7. And John Barry 7 is the most awkward stage presentation, because a wonderful group and a wonderful sound and all that. But John Barry had to stand in front of them conducting because he was kind of stranded between the old tradition of the orchestra and the dance band,
right,
and the new tradition of the pop group. You know what I mean? It was slightly awkward compromise between the two. You know,
yes.
And you thought within 2 years the Beatles blew this all away.
They blew it all away
because they were just 4 guys who played and sang simultaneously. That's the key difference.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. Of course. As I said before, the skiffle era had a lot to do with that shift.
Yeah.
Because I know the Beatles were, the Quarrymen, and before they were the Beatles.
But the demand for Alexander's Ragtime Band would have just dropped off overnight after the first Beatles era. Yeah. A lot of people would just be unemployed.
It probably dropped off at the same time as the Guinea.
Yeah.
I would have thought. But anyway, thank God for that changeover and giving me my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you got some more stuff though?
I've got so I was looking for stuff. I've got a nice a telegram. Do you remember telegram?
Yes.
Oh yes.
And it's a greetings telegram. It's got a nice,
very nice
thing on. Anyway, this was sent to 10cc on the 2nd of February 1976, all-purpose 10cc stage door, Sheffield City Hall. Hope it's a good one. Stop. Love, Paul and Linda McCartney.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's quite nice, isn't it?
It is.
Very good. And it's very good that you've kept it.
Yeah.
You'd never do that with a text message, would you?
No, you wouldn't.
That's delightful.
There's going to be none of the, if anybody's sitting here doing this in 100 years' time, there'll be no souvenirs of now.
No.
It'll all be digital. It'll all have just disappeared.
Yeah, and you'll have 1 billion photographs of yourself.
Yes.
That's right. Waving a beer bottle at the camera.
We've got a new baby in the family, and the amount of photos that come through every day,
Yeah.
So what would be interesting is to put them all together to watch him grow,
Yeah. No, they just,
in a different time.
Children are they're covered 24 hours nowadays, aren't they? They're news events.
There's new footage daily.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So it's traditional on these things, Graham, but we ask people to tell us, what is the greatest record ever made, in your opinion? And you can be as flippant about it or as serious about it as you like. It doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer.
That's one of the hardest questions, and you know it.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
We ask you tomorrow, it'll be something else.
Different answer tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
That's exactly right. However, I've chosen a song that starts with the counting, and I always felt that the counting sort of kick-started my life as a songwriter and as a musician. And that song is by the Beatles, funnily enough, and it's I Saw Her Standing There.
I Saw Her Standing There. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a tune.
It's a great record anyway. It might not be the greatest song in the world, but it has
I could never
so
believe
much
that
meaning to
McCartney
me.
could sing that and play the bass part at the same time, because it's so complicated, isn't it?
It's a great bass part, brilliant bass part.
You
know
wrote
And the
that
way he
song
sings
in Golden Square, didn't
No,
you, Dave?
I'll tell you the story.
In London?
In Mark Lewison's fantastic 3-part, massive, great, definitive biography of the Beatles, first part, he writes about, and he does it in a footnote because he obviously only got to know it quite late in the day, is that I think in 1962, or possibly 61, I don't know, the Beatles only had one day off for the year or something like that. They were playing so many shows, they had one day off. And during that day off, or 2 days off, Paul set off to London with his then girlfriend.
They hitchhiked, I think.
And how did he travel to London? He hitchhiked. That's what you did in 1961, 62, whatever. And they went all the way down to London to meet, who was it? Their mate of theirs who was working as a doorman at the Establishment Club, which
That's
was
right.
Cook Satire Club in Soho. They stayed on the guy's floor in Great Portland Street. The following morning, they went for a walk around what I think was Fitzroy Square, and he finished writing.
And he wrote it, didn't he? There, yeah.
He came up with the idea, you know, and it was all about we danced all through the night and we held each other tight, and that was all to do with what they'd done at the Establishment Club the night before.
Brilliant. I never heard
Wasn't
that
it?
story. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a fantastic record, and it's a great beginning record, isn't it?
It's a great beginning record, and the energy and the joy of it, and the Beatles. You know, what can I don't get me started?
It's the joy of it, absolutely. Graham, it's been lovely talking to you. It's been so
great
fun.
pleasure for me as well. Lovely
Terrific
to see you.
That was
again.
brilliant.
And what are you doing the rest of the day? Back in your studio?
I'm going to go back into the studio. I've got an arrangement. I'm looking at something at the moment that I think could be very good, I hope.
Okay.
And yeah, that's what I'll be doing.
Well, thanks very much.
Absolute
indeed.
joy to talk to you. Thanks so
Lovely
much.
to
Great to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a View.